Hey guys, I want to do a book review today, and I'm going to try to keep it short because this book offered so much wisdom. Um, it came to me at the right time. I've been asking the universe a lot of questions, and it's brought me a lot of the answers. So I know that it was meant to be at this particular time. And that's kind of how books, and I think I've mentioned that before, but that's kind of how I roll with books. They find me, I don't find them, and it's always right on time, whatever the message is. So this is the book. It's probably backwards, but it's called The Spiritual Tasks of the Homemaker by Manfred Schmidt-Braband. This actually was a book recommended by the Waldorf curriculum that we're going to follow in the fall, starting in the fall, I should say. And she, the creator of the Waldorf curriculum we're using, has a lot of different books that she recommends for new and really anybody who is into the Waldorf type of lifestyle. It's not just a methodology, in my opinion. It's really a lifestyle. So this is one of the books to kind of get you to understand why rhythm and the whoever pretty much is going to be the teacher of the curriculum is probably, the mom, and the mom is one who sets the tone for the life that the family leads normally. So looking at what it is to be a homemaker and what the spiritual side of it is really interested me in just by itself. But I had never even thought, that was the first thing that kind of struck me about the book. Like, I had never even thought about myself as a homemaker per se, because when I think about a homemaker, it's like June Cleaver or a stay-at-home mom who is doing just mom work, whatever that is. She doesn't really work outside the home, and all these stereotypical ideas of what a homemaker is. And a homemaker doesn't have to be a woman, it could be a man. It's whoever sets the tone, pretty much. That's kind of one of the things I came away with from the book. Excuse me, but I'm gonna just kind of go through some notes that I have from reading it. It was not a quick read, even though it's 42 pages. It took me about 2 weeks. It's one of those books that you have to digest. You can't just read straight through it. You stop and you think, and you're like, whoa, and really, and you want to go research other stuff. And I didn't have time to do all that, but I did want to just go through this quickly and kind of start off with the first thing that hit me on page 4 about the history of what homemaking that we know it to be is. And he says, and I'll just read it to you, the ideal of a good wife and mother comes from middle-class society of the previous century in Middle Europe. It stems from a time in which the housewife did not have to care for the household by herself. Cooks took care of the meals, nursemaids looked after the children. So if you think about the June Cleavers and, that stereotypical housewife, homemaker that we've come to think that was the ideal, she didn't, that doesn't even reflect the reality of what a homemaker, the definition of it is. It seems like the homemaker was really the debutante, maybe, someone who went to the parties and, was the trophy wife, but she didn't take care of any of the work. So she had the kids, but she didn't raise them. She ate the food, but she didn't cook it, or she presented it, but she didn't make it. So, that's the first thing that kind of hit me. It's realistic. We're starting off at a disadvantage because we see these pictures on TV, or we see these people these women normally that can do it all, the super moms, the super wife, and it's just it's not real. I mean, and it's not real, but when you read that historically they didn't even do any of the work, it's like, what are we doing? Why do we feel so much pressure when that's not even what the true definition is? And that was one of the other things that kind of got me it was just a lot of questions on what is the history of the things that we believe we need to be doing as mothers, as homemakers. You know, it's not about having a spotless house or, you know, having the perfect children and all that. It just kind of drummed up a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts like, why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to reach this ideal when the ideal is false? So that was kind of big for me. It talked about how before you know the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, and you know everybody comes together, and it's more of a collective way of thinking. That was old school or whatever, where we've moved away from that. And I think a lot of people don't understand that the time of being a collective thinking society is over. Everybody is individual at this point, and it's not a bad thing. I think individuality brings about different opportunities to grow. You can still grow as a society, but I believe individually we each should grow, and then that'll kind of be like a ripple effect. And that's kind of what the homemaker, one of her big jobs or his big jobs, is to really nurture her own individuality that in turn nurtures her family. So if you set the tone, if you create this rhythm, if you create this environment that is welcoming and like a soft place to land, so when things go wrong, it's still okay because you have family and you have yourself and you know you can get past it. That's kind of one of her big jobs, is to know what the family needs to grow, and herself included. And that's another thing, mamas, that we don't put ourselves in that equation. It's not to serve everybody. It is to help them honor who they are, because we know who we are. So that was really key for me, that, you know, you kind of know these things, but when you see it presented a different way, it's like, aha, you know, those aha moments. Another thing is, like I talked about, really being tapped into what the family's needs are, what the energy is like, what the souls are feeling. I think as mothers and fathers, we can really sense what our children and our spouses are feeling, even if they can't tell us or they don't tell us. We really know that. That's just when you become a family. I think that's just something that is inherent. If you can listen to it and honor it, it's there. He talked about how being very intentional in your work and he calls homemaking a career. And, you know, if you really think about it, it is. And it's one of the most intense careers that anyone can ever journey through. So he says when you're intentional with your work, so you're cleaning, your discipline with your children, your cooking, anything like that, you are stirring up energy and you are kind of awakening as you go on, because you're learning and you're applying and you're shifting and you're calling forth this different energy to help you through. You can call it God, you can call it whatever, but it is there, and it is there to help you awaken. And ultimately, that's what everybody's supposed to do individually. But as a homemaker, you have an additional requirement to really know yourself, go inward, and you awaken. And then, like I talked about before, that ripple effect happens, and your family can do the same thing. One of the big things that I'll just quickly talk about is he says ego really equals your individuality. And that was like a showstopper for me, because what I've learned about ego over the probably last year or so is that ego is something that takes you away from yourself. It's the thing that tells you you can't do something. It tells you that you're no good. You know, you're not worth whatever. But he shifted and said it's really what sets you apart. So just think on that. Let me know what y'all think, because I was just like, whoa, that was different for me. Let's see. You know, between the pages of 12 and 20, He talks about the different aspects of the household, different levels of being human are reflected in the household. He talks about the physical, the spiritual matter. It was a couple others. And I didn't quite get that, to be honest. I need to go back and review it because it was kind of over my head. And I actually bought this book. I wasn't able to find it at the library, so I have, and I can always go back when I'm ready. But I was not ready to receive those pages. So if you get to read it, you can let me know if you're familiar, because I didn't quite understand it the way that I should to be able to tell you guys about it. What I did like is toward the end of the book, he started giving practical examples of how you can really cultivate homemaking, that career, if you want to go in that route. And I think most women, I'm just going to say women, want to have that kind of household that is, like I talked about before, welcoming and nurturing. And you really have to be specific and intentional to do that. So there's 6 different exercises that really cultivate the attitude of a homemaker. And I won't go through them, but it was very interesting, and I liked being able to, kind of understand take the history of what he talked about and kind of see how it's applied in those. So that was pretty cool. What else? Oh, okay. So this is the big thing that kind of got me. Towards the end, he started talking about how the homemaker is really the key to bringing shifting from the patriarchal system that we have now back to the feminine or the matriarchal system, which infuses more spirit into the world. And that's kind of what's lacking when you look at what's going on in the world. And granted, I don't go into the news, and I don't believe everything I read, but I think there is a if you're somebody who really is outside of the norm, you may not see it. And I consider myself outside of the norm because I don't tap into the news. I don't, follow celebrities. I don't do all that. But I think that a lot of these stories are real. Children are in distress. People are angry. There's a lot of negativity. Do I think that is the majority of the world? No. Do I think that, like I'm in Detroit, do I fear for my life every day? No. But if you're not here, or even the suburbs of Detroit, you might think so. That perception might be there. But, I don't believe that that's the case. So, infusing your individual households with the type of good energy really can, like I said before, ripple into the rest of the world. It's not your job to do that. It's not even your job to make sure that your children set up that ripple. It is your job to be yourself and to cultivate yourself and hopefully be an example for your family, that they can do the same. And once we do that, once we fix our little pod to where we can be really together and moving forward in our individual spaces, but still together as a family, that absolutely will change the world. This kind of got me to thinking, is the breakdown of the family really ultimately the core of what our world problems are? We talk about the government or, terrorists or whatever, is the latest issue. But it really gets back to what's happening in the house. As mothers, are we more nurturing, or are we more negative, or being condemning of our children or of our spouses, or vice versa for husbands? Are we lifting up our spouses, or are we shutting them down? Obviously there's a high rate of divorce, and it's a lot of children that are acting out, and it just makes you think, maybe the problems of the world could be solved if there were more homemaker minded spiritual leaders in the home. I don't know, it got me to think of that. So kind of a couple of takeaways for me were spiritual, I'm trying to read my writing. I don't know what I said. Spiritual work, maybe? And that's, I mean, like I've said throughout this thing, that's essentially what the Homemaker is doing, is creating a spiritual, sacred space that she or he and the family can grow from. And then the last thing was to infuse your soul into everything you do. So if you're cutting those carrots, even though I hate prep work, but he specifically talked about food and how that is really a connection to the earth. It's a connection to ancestors. It's a connection to the here and now. And so really to work on not hating prep and to really enjoying the opportunity to really put my soul into what I'm nourishing my family with physically, and so they can get some of that love in their system as well from that respect. Cleaning with intention, washing clothes and folding clothes with intention, just bringing yourself to your right now awareness can really lead to big shifts. So this video went way longer than I thought, but I really enjoyed this book. I'll put a link to it on Amazon because that's where I got it. And if you get it, let me know. I'm not an affiliate. I'm just a girl that likes to read. So hope you guys are doing well. I'll talk to you later. Bye.